Good morning and thanks for joining us. And today I am thrilled to welcome Jennifer Rioch to the programme.
Thank you so much, Rav. I'm so delighted to be here as part of the team working with the police and hearing from viewers across the series, really focusing on really important set of appeals. It is a total privilege, so thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on board. We have got work to do today, though. Today, an appeal from Gloucestershire Constabulary to identify these women. They're all caught on camera pinching a vulnerable victim's wallet.
Yeah, we'll also be delving into the dark world of online radicalisation to see how a teenager fascinated with Satanism started to put his words into action.
Cameron had been engaging online with a female, and Cameron was actually encouraging her to kill herself in front of his group.
Would that elevate your reputation? Yes.
And I'll be talking to Luke Taylor from a think tank to find out more about how we can prevent boys from falling into a life of crime.
Now, we have had a great response to our appeals yesterday, particularly the armed robbery at a newsagent's. We'll keep you updated on that. And our team and the officers from today's programme are currently backstage, ready to take your calls. You can scan the QR code below using your phone's camera and just follow the link. You can call us on 08000 468 999. Or you can text us on 63399. Start with the word crime, leave a space, and then write your message. Or just drop us an email at cwl@bbc.co.uk.
Now, first, in October 2024, 75-year-old John Murray was left unconscious outside his home after being brutally assaulted. The identity of his attackers remains a mystery.
On Saturday, the 12th of October 2024, a 75-year-old man called John Murray was found unconscious outside his block of flats in West London. The London Ambulance Service received a call from one of John's neighbours. They arrived, they moved him into his house so they could try and treat him and save his life. But sadly, he died at scene.
John was a much-loved family man and popular with his neighbours, and had lived happily in Colton Road, Chiswick, for around 15 years.
Initially, John's death was treated as an unexplained death under investigation. There was no signs of a disturbance in the house. There was no sign of a break-in. There was nothing to indicate why John was found unconscious and subsequently died, unfortunately. And due to the level of injury, the pathologist also visited the scene to try and understand what could have happened on that day. The pathology revealed that likely John was punched to the face. He has fallen backwards, where John has hit his head on a concrete surface. And then there's been an additional sustained assault, which could have been caused by fists or feet. That's either been by the same person or another person. That's resulted in multiple fractures and severe damage to the brain, which subsequently killed him. This was a sustained and violent attack on a 75-year-old person in their own home. And he didn't try to put up a fight. And on the 4th of June, I declared it a homicide investigation.
Officers began to piece together John's movements on the day he was murdered.
Around 11 o'clock in the morning, he returned back from Morrison's on his motorbike, so one of the neighbours seen him return. We don't know what happened between 11 o'clock and around 1:30 in the afternoon, because at that point, one of John's neighbours had seen him in the communal garden, and he wasn't feeling very well that day. He said to the neighbour they hadn't slept for around 36 hours. And then another neighbour at 3 o'clock that afternoon saw John in the communal garden. And then around about 3:30, there was a scream that someone had heard, and that may or may not have come from John. We don't know. And then a neighbour has left their house and then had seen John lying unconscious, face down, half inside his flat. And then at that point, she called the London Ambulance Service. John lived in an area in West London in flats. He lived on the second floor. It's not a high crime area. It's not easy access. It wouldn't make any sense why someone would target his particular door. There's nothing to indicate John had a great deal of wealth. He's 75 years old, he lived on his own. He was retired, but he was very active, and he liked to collect things: watches, lighters, fishing, camping gear. So he had a wide variety of interests, and that could bring him into contact with a number of different people. By understanding who he could come into contact with might help us identify the person that would want to cause him any harm. But in this case, we've struggled because John was a nice man. He helped his neighbours. He didn't, from our understanding, fear anyone. Often he would keep his door either open or certainly unlocked. And he also didn't fully believe in banks and kept just under £10,000 in cash in his flat. Did he tell anyone? Because that could be an incentive for a criminal to steal that money. Now, we've recovered that money, but that's not to say that someone wasn't in that flat trying to take that money from him. Or potentially an opportunistic criminal, or someone possibly suffering from an acute mental health episode, for example, has just stumbled across John at the wrong time at the wrong place. John didn't have what we would call defensive injuries on him. There's no weapon involved in this. So we have to consider that, did John surprise someone in the house and they've reacted by violently and repeatedly assaulting John? The impact of John's death has been really severely felt, both by his family and by his neighbours. Losing a loved one is traumatic enough, but then we had to tell the family that we're treating it as a murder investigation. And that really shook the family's world, because that's the last thing that they were expecting.
And I'm now with DCI Brian Howie from the Met. And I just want to start by reassuring our viewers that this is a very rare type of attack. But can you just recap, Brian, what you know about what John did that day?
Yeah, so on Saturday, the 12th of October last year, at some point in the morning, John went to Morrison's supermarket in Acton on his motorbike, arriving back into Carlton Road around about 11 o'clock that morning, where he met one of his neighbours. There's then a gap until around about 1:30 that afternoon, where another neighbour saw John lying on the floor by his shed. He was complaining of a sore wrist and had collapsed, but there's no visible injuries, and he didn't need any medical assistance at that time. There's then a further gap until around 3 o'clock, but that could be from 2:45 to 3:30, where another neighbour seen John, again in the communal area, sitting on a wall and then standing up, and that could be the last sighting of John alive. And then around about between 3 and 3:30 that afternoon, another neighbour has heard a scream, believing it to be a male's voice, coming from the direction of John's flat, lasting for a few seconds, and that might not be connected with this. And then sadly around 3:30, another neighbour has found John unconscious, lying on the threshold of his flat with severe injuries.
It really is so sad. And the cause of John's death, it was quite brutal, wasn't it? What do you know about that?
It was a complex crime scene. Initially, people thought John had fallen over due to his illnesses, but he was severely attacked in his own home with no weapon, no defensive injuries on John, which could indicate he surprised the person that done this to him. And they could have followed him from the communal area up. The scream could be attached to that. But it was such a severe attack, it could indicate a personal grudge against John. It's just we don't know enough about his life.
It's an incredibly tricky investigation for you, but have you managed to find out any sort of motive for the attacker?
There's no clear motive. John was a nice guy, but he had an eclectic mix of hobbies. He liked to buy and sell lots of different items, and that could have brought him into conflict with a number of people. We also know he had £10,000 cash in the house, and therefore that could be a motive for someone to break in. Has he told someone about that cash? Has someone found out about it? There was no signs of forced entry. We know John often left his door unlocked or opened, and someone watched him that day and trying to find the money and left without having it. But there's gaps in our knowledge of what John did and his lifestyle that we need the public to help us with.
It's worth saying, Brian, that £10,000 is now in a very safe place. The family clearly have been deeply affected by John's murder. They gave us this statement. It reads, "It has been 12 months since John was killed, and as a family, we are still struggling to come to terms with how he died. Someone must know why he was attacked, and we urge anyone who can help in any small way to please contact the police or Crime Stoppers." And on that note, Brian, there is actually a £20,000 Crime Stoppers reward for information that could lead to arrest and conviction.
There is, and we'd encourage people to contact either this show, Crime Stoppers, which they can do anonymously, but someone must know what happened, so we'd encourage the public to phone in.
Yeah, very, very important to do that. You can contact Crime Stoppers directly on 08000 555 111. The number is also at the bottom of the screen. So, Brian, who do you want to hear from today? Who can help with this investigation?
Well, we know John was at Morrison's in the morning. Did someone see him at that supermarket? Was he arguing with anyone? Had he contacted anyone, including the journey to and from Acton back to his home address in Chiswick? It's not a long distance. What about people that were in the area? Did they notice anything unusual in the days, the weeks, the months, anyone hanging around? His family believed that there was a tradesperson due to visit him that morning. Did you have an appointment with John? Were you supposed to go there? Even if it was to buy or sell some goods. Are you reconnected with John? Is there a person in his past that he is reconnected with recently? Was that you? Or have you made a new relationship with him? Have you spoken to John in the months and the days before he was killed? Did he feel threatened? Someone must know something about what happened to him. It's now almost 12 months since John was killed, and we need to find justice for John, and more importantly, we need to find answers for his family.
We certainly do. It really is a mystery that needs to be solved. Jen.
Indeed. Now, later, we'll be looking at some of the ways the police are foiling the efforts of those after a 5-finger discount. But first, in March 2024, Counter-Terrorism were alerted to a possible and imminent attack. What they found led them into a dark world where a Satanist network were targeting vulnerable people and convincing them to do awful things.
Online extremism has got a huge global reach. And as a result of that, we don't know what is happening inside people's living rooms and what young people are particularly accessing.
The level of anonymity that exists within the online world means that people are much more willing to express extreme views. It's really difficult in the online space to understand if somebody is a genuine threat or they're a keyboard warrior. And they don't have the fear of recourse around that.
We're now also seeing a lot more mixed ideologies, a lot more fixation with violence. And certainly the case of Cameron Finnegan was one of those.
On the 26th of March 2024, I came into the office like any ordinary day, and there was some intelligence that related to a threat that somebody was going to commit an attack, potentially a murder, on a homeless individual.
This counter-terrorism officer can't be identified for operational reasons.
They were going to use a firearm to conduct the attack. And the intelligence was that that attack could take place as early as today.
Officers had picked up the threat of an imminent attack in an online chat room.
We identified that a person by the username of Acid was associated to a group called 764. and he was the person intending to conduct the attack.
764 is an online extremist group with links to terrorism and is centred on violence and the abuse of vulnerable people. This added weight to the legitimacy of the threat, so detectives used digital forensic techniques to trace the source of the post to a home in Horsham, Sussex.
When it comes to a lot of social media postings, it is a challenge for police to understand whether actually it is a lot of blustering or whether there is real intent and capability behind it. We did not have a big timescale in order to investigate that, and ultimately our priority is public safety. So we really felt that we needed to act now and get the suspect into custody.
At that point, it was really important to obtain an assessment as to who those occupants were and where the potential threat may be coming from within that address. One of the occupants of that house was an 18-year-old male called Cameron Finnegan.
The teenager wasn't on the radar of the anti-terrorist unit, but searches revealed he'd shown some troubling behaviour at school.
He seemed to be the person who was most likely to be involved with this group and potentially looking to conduct this attack.
Concerned their suspect might have access to weapons, the team called in specialist firearms officers to assist with the arrest.
I wanted to make sure that this didn't have an overly impactful effect on Cameron or his family. And for that reason, although we used firearms, we did call Cameron out of the address and tried to do that arrest in a compliant way.
But remarkably, he refused to voluntarily come out of the house.
It's quite unusual, from my experience, for somebody who's had limited interactions with the police and is quite young, only 18, for somebody not to comply with the orders given by a firearms team. Most people would comply.
Instead, Finnegan remained in his room and attempted to live stream his arrest.
That was because, for him, notoriety within the group that he was part of was more important than listening to the police.
As a police officer, you know that you need to do the utmost in order to preserve life. It gets the heart racing, and you feel nervous up until the point that that individual is secured and in custody.
Cameron, this is all police. Come to the door now. Cameron! In your hand. Right, subject C. Hands on your head. Hands on your head. Right, walk towards the kitchen. That's it. Insult your fingers. Yeah. Yeah, bring this one down. You got anything on you shouldn't have? I haven't got anything. Right.
Once I was made aware that Cameron Finnegan was in custody, it was a relief, because then I knew that we had time to investigate and to work through his digital devices and complete the search of his room.
Following the arrest, there's lots of things that happen in tandem. We get him into custody, we start looking at interviewing him, and the house search starts.
Police could now establish if Finnegan was a viable threat, and it didn't take long to make some alarming discoveries.
There was a lock knife, a practice butterfly knife, and a punch bag that had slash marks in it.
That maybe be an indication that he was actually practicing in order to hurt somebody.
There was a banner with the satanic beast on it, which indicated that maybe he was interested in Satanism. There were defaced Bibles that were covered in blood. There were swastikas and writings that were racist within his bedroom.
When they seized his devices for analysis, they found more grisly evidence.
There was the photo of a dead rabbit within a pentagram.
So Finnegan did have a real interest in extreme Satanism.
But this was just the tip of the iceberg.
The only thing you're concerned about is if she went through with it and you got caught, not about whether she was dead or not.
I don't think about stuff in that moment.
and we will feature the second shocking part of that film shortly. Now, we have just heard that Lincolnshire Police have arrested a 54-year-old man in connection with the armed robbery appeal that we ran yesterday. Brilliant news, and we'll bring you more on that as soon as we can. Also hoping our viewers can help Gloucestershire constabulary now, who need information about the theft of a wallet from an elderly and vulnerable man in Cheltenham town centre. So Monday the 21st of July, around about 1:45, the victim, who is an elderly wheelchair user, had been shopping with a friend. He'd withdrawn a sum of money from his bank and put it into a bag on the back of his wheelchair. Now, he and his friend then went to a local deli on the high street to get some food, and a friend had positioned the victim's wheelchair so that he could see what was on offer. But this is the problem. Whilst there, two women, you can see it here, they grabbed his wallet and simply walked off. And they both made a swift exit back onto the busy high street in the direction of a nearby multi-storey car park, which is sadly where the CCTV trail goes cold. Now, police have released this image of the two suspects, so do take a look. Now, they've also asked us to share this clip of CCTV, which was taken prior to the incident. And they believe it shows the two suspects as well as an unknown male. And one of the female suspects, you'll notice there, was wearing a pink top, which was actually removed before the theft. Police would also like to identify the male, you can see in the middle of the image, who was seen with the two women before the event. So have a good look. Do you recognise them? If you have any information, then please do get in touch. Contact details are at the bottom of the screen.
Now, there is a crime that is on the rise. It's bold, it's brazen, and it's probably happening on a street near you. Yes, shoplifting. Stats around this nationally have reached shocking levels, but officers and retailers are fighting back. Sergeant Christian Denning from the business crime team at Essex Police is here to tell us more. Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Now, we're going to have a wee look at some examples of shoplifting from Essex. And people here, I mean, you can watch them. It's so bold, just walking in, taking what they want and sauntering back out. It's quite galling. Is this typical of what we see now?
Yes, this is very typical of what you'll see these days across the nation. Yeah. We have people that effectively are just walking in straight past any sort of security measures and taking. A lot of our organisations and businesses these days are set up much for that customer journey, to walk in, see everything, and everything to be obviously able to hold and grab and take. But this has obviously left us with a further crime element to it, where people can come in, get what they need.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of work around this type of criminality, and you've identified 3 different types of shoplifting. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so breaking it down on a national level, we sort of looked into it and we saw that you've got, like you said, 3 types. You've got your opportunists, which are people that will take they'll take things just as and when they feel that they are owed it, they're entitled to it. You know, my price of my shopping's gone up, I'll have that loaf of bread. Yeah. But then you've also got your prolific offenders and you've also got your organised crime groups. Now, prolific offenders and organised crime groups are the people we're really interested in, because we're talking about mass repeat victimisation towards our businesses and the staff that work in them. So we have to look at all those different elements and problem solve them in a different way.
So how does that characterisation actually help you combat that crime that is so varied, really?
Well, like I said, problem solving is the main thing for this. You know, we need to understand what each of those problems is. Instead of just looking at shoplifting as a whole, break it down into those 3, but look into why the suspects and those different things, why are they doing it? What are their actual motives for it? We look at the locations that they're doing it in, because a lot of them, when it comes to prolific offenders, they deal with the same place over and over again because they're used to the security measures there. Right. And obviously with our organised crime groups, we need to make sure we're working with other forces to ensure that we're getting that message out there. So we look into that, and by doing that, what we try and do is when we problem solve anything, I always equate it to a fire. Fire has 3 elements, and those 3 elements, if you remove one, the fire goes out. If we can do that, destabilise one element, we're quitting.
Nice,
I like that.
It is, it's good. It's a good theory, but how does it actually help shopkeepers in practice, like day to day?
Yeah, so my team, what we do is we tend to give advice and guidance on shop layouts. We go advice and guidance on evidence collection, because obviously if people are getting arrested from certain areas a lot more, they tend to go back. But it's all about, for us, getting that information in and using it appropriately. So we try and speed up that information coming in as well. We've got a rapid video response team that we use at this precise moment in Essex. We're trialling it, where we're trying to get our contact management staff to speak to to victims in shops straight away, so we can get that evidence into the chain quickly whilst that person's under arrest and being brought into the police station. So we're finding that's speeding up our efficiency. But we're also finding that it's helping us understand where shop workers are, because some of them need further technology.
Yeah.
And it's also about how you deal with any offenders that are brought into custody as well. It's trying to streamline that process as well.
That's right, yeah. We've done some work which happens on a national area as well, where we've done some work on what you call Operation Retail, which is removing the need to actually interview suspects if we've got all the evidence in place. Effectively, we're turning around and saying, look, this is you on the video here. We can see you doing the offence is completed. We don't need to talk to you. If you want to talk to us, by all means do, but we don't need to. You can go straight to court. It's working out really well. It's saving officers lots of time. It's meaning we're getting much more arrests going on, or much more, process going through.
So much more you can do with your time, because these things take a massive amount of time.
Yeah. So much more efficient. So I presume it has been quite successful then?
It has, yeah. And certainly in the last year, I think we've now managed about, we've solved about 1,600 further offences as we did 2 years ago. We've also led on to criminal behaviour orders, where we've got about over 100 criminal behaviour orders in Essex against our most prolific people, which stops them going into certain stores as well. So there's really good stuff.
It's having an impact, which is actually so important. Yeah.
Now, I have to ask this, Christian, there's going to be lots of people that might think, well, it's just a bit of shoplifting. There's these big companies, they can afford it, it's not really hurting anyone. Yeah. What would you say to those?
Well, that really annoys me, if I'm honest. Gets my goat, if I'm totally honest. With the business I've been doing this for the last 2 or 3 years, it's not about faceless people miles away. This is about our actual friends and family that work in these stores that have to put up with this kind of abusive behaviour every day. You know, these people are on low wages and they have to stay at, effectively, they go to work, crime happens to them, and they have to go back to the crime scene every day.
Yeah.
They have to suffer that, worrying if someone's going to come through the door, they're going to hurt them, harm them, or do something. They're going to have to get involved, and they're worried about their jobs and their finances. That's what I would say to people, you know. It's certainly what I'd say. I'd even say that to people that are buying second-hand goods that they think may be stolen.
Certainly not a victimless
Impact
crime.
is huge.
Exactly.
It really
it's
is.
massive across society.
Christian, thank you so much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much.
Now, back to the work of the counter-terrorism police, who have arrested a teenager they believe is plotting to attack to increase his kudos with an online Satanist group. Again, this film has some upsetting themes.
18-year-old Cameron Finnegan was tracked down and arrested at his home in Sussex.
Bring this one down. You got anything on you shouldn't have? I haven't got anything.
His devices had been seized and sent for analysis.
We had about 2.5 terabytes of data that we extracted from his devices. And to put that in context, if I was to print off all of that data onto sheets of A4 and piled it on top of each other, that would be about 50 miles high.
Police found that Finnegan, who suffered poor mental health, had joined an online extremist group called 764, which had links to terrorism just 6 months previously.
Ash, what do you know about 764?
I told you the other day, it's just an online terrorist group. It's about all I know. They extort people of race, mental health problems, or if they're just mentally vulnerable for anyone to really use.
So 764 was a real mix. We had people that were interested in cybercrime, that were interested in indecent images of children, people that were interested in violence.
764's ultimate aim is to change society through violence, and they've got a huge global reach, which is why they are such a concerning group.
What stood out with Finnegan is he was really driven by violence. During the investigation, we did identify a manual on Finnegan's devices. This manual was basically an instructional manual on how to kill people and how to cause mass casualty events. The violence of the group really appealed to him, and he looked to rise through that group in terms of his status. And one of the ways that he would do that would be to post content. One of the pieces of evidence that we found was Finnegan going out, identifying a vehicle, and then using a knife to damage that vehicle. He filmed it, he posted it, and he tried to get notoriety from that.
Officers viewed over 700 hours of footage, finding indecent images of children and extremely violent content. But he wasn't just a passive receiver of other people's content, as their next disturbing discovery would reveal.
We became aware that Cameron had been...
He was dead or not.
I don't think about stuff in that moment.
This is somebody who wants to see death, and he wants to be responsible for that death.
Police believed that he then viewed another user's post where they'd murdered a homeless person.
Finnegan had gone to a park where he located a tent, believing that a homeless male was living there. He has then posted that online in order to show the rest of the group, and he's made it quite clear that he intends to come back the next day in order to kill that individual.
He then returns 2 days later, and he takes another photo saying that he's waiting for the person to return. Later on that day, he posts on the group that he's getting cold, but he will come back and he will kill that person.
Thankfully, it was at this point that Finnegan was arrested.
I think he was going to do it because I don't think he left himself any options but to do it or be disgraced on the group, which is the worst thing that I think in his head could have happened to him.
In October 2024, he pleaded guilty to a string of offences.
Finnegan was charged with possession of material of a kind likely to be useful to a person conducting or preparing for an act of terrorism. He was charged with doing an act capable of encouraging or assisting suicide. He was charged with 2 counts of criminal damage and possessing indecent images of children.
In January 2025 at the Old Bailey, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
This investigation for me was a real eye-opener in terms of the link between crime offences and terrorism, and how we protect the public is very difficult when there's such a large amount of activity in the online space that's targeting really vulnerable people.
The case of Cameron Finnegan has really shone a light on the grip that these online groups have. And I think it was really difficult to judge with Cameron himself how he had fallen within this group, and then actually started to act as a perpetrator himself. And part of this is just trying to make parents, carers, guardians more aware of the threat and what young people are actually being drawn into.
If you have any concerns about someone you know who's expressing extreme views or hatred, you can call the Antiterrorism hotline on 0800 789 321, or you can report them to Ackerley.uk. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Luke Taylor from the Centre for Social Justice, a think tank who have been conducting research into why young men and boys are being drawn to organisations like the one Cameron Finnegan was fixated by. Luke, thank you so much for joining us. So can you tell us about some of the work you've been looking at?
Yes, thanks for having me. So we work with about 700 charities across the UK, and for the last year or two, they've really been telling us the same thing, and that is that something is going on for our boys. So we wanted to try and see if we could quantify this feeling. So we've analysed over 100 data sets, we've spoken to over 100 charities, we've polled over 3,000 people and done lots of different focus groups and produced this report called Lost Boys.
So there's been a lot of research done. What has it found?
So I think increasingly a lot of young men are becoming isolated, socially excluded. I mean, we found now that young boys are more likely to have a smartphone in their pocket than a father at home. Yeah, and particularly for these vulnerable boys, we might have found that 20 or 30 years ago they would have been introduced into something like a gang. We know that belonging is the #1 currency of a gang. It gives them an opportunity to have a community, to build some reputational status, earn some money, get some direction. And it might not be a very good direction, but it is there. Yeah. But what we're finding now is that these communities and spaces are increasingly being found online. And that's a real challenge because they are ever present. We don't know who's doing it, where they're doing it from, but also that they are just unchallenged echo chambers.
Yeah, it is tricky. It's really difficult stuff. And this is all sorts of different radicalisation and toxicity as well. It's not just what we saw in the film there. Yeah. And we actually even saw sort of a showcase of that in Adolescence, the TV film. We got to see a wee bit more about that whole topic. Everyone's sort of aware of it now.
Yeah, I mean, in the conversations we'd have about what's going on with young men, 9 out of 10 of the charities would talk about someone like Andrew Tate or the Adolescence show. And I think it's really important to mention that, like, why are young men finding this content so appealing? Why is it drawing them in? And part of that is that it's explicitly talking to young men, it's giving them guidance, but also it's because some of what they're saying is generally pretty good, right? It's work hard, get a job, it's look after yourself, go to the gym, don't watch pornography. All these things are pretty good for young men.
Absolutely.
But the challenge is that they weave in these misogynistic or regressive narratives, and that can really shape the way that boys are thinking. I think it's particularly worth pointing out that, you know, for young boys who don't have that kind of love or stability and consistency at home, or, you know, their school environment is not a positive one, they don't enjoy it, they don't feel like they're good at anything, or actually their kind of future opportunities are limited, so they can't look, say, in 10 or 20 years' time, I want to do that, or I could be here. If they don't have those kinds of things, then the messaging that is online becomes so much more alluring and powerful.
And this is a message that's a problem that's seen not just here in the UK, but around the world, isn't it?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've been talking with people in the US, Australia, France, Germany. It's certainly happening in a lot of different places. And I think it's those two things of kind of men in communities, but also the online world. So it's not just fathers. In the UK, we have a third of primary schools with no male teachers at all. And then universally almost, social media and smartphones are just adopted by all young people now.
So what are you advocating for then? What can we do?
So we're continuing with our research. We're trying to actually come up with some ideas that can help with this. We're focusing on particularly young boys. What can we do in their lives to increase the kind of protective factors that surround them? And also working with kind of adolescents and young men. How can we inject some purpose, some resilience and direction into their lives too? And I think there's a few ways we're thinking of particularly trying to do this. One is working with, family hubs. They're a little bit like short start centres. They provide, advice or guidance for parents with young children and best practice. Other things like youth clubs. So how can we get spaces in communities for young men, particularly those men that might be in those situations I mentioned? They can find those trusted adults. Also, how do we use the idea of sport and to really re-engage young men, particularly in a schooling environment? And then I think the final thing we're really trying to think about is how we can put a call out to men to stand up and help raise the next generation of young boys into good men.
Great advice there. And if someone's watching at home, they want to get involved, be that positive role model. Luke, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Now it's time for today's Wanted Faces. And first, we've got John Casey, though he also calls himself John O'Rourke, Michael Casey, and John Joyce. He has breached the conditions of his licence from prison, and police say he has connections in Ireland, Essex, Surrey, Luton, Sussex, and also Lincolnshire. They also say he may have left the country and gone to America or Canada. Or have you seen this man? This is John Bresnahan. Police in Surrey want to talk to him about an assault in a pub that left a man with injuries. He's 34, with dark hair and may have a beard now. He has links to London as well as Surrey. What about this man? We've got Anton Newell here. Sometimes he calls himself Ashley and goes by the surname Williams. In July 2025, he went missing from prison and has been urgently recalled. So if you see him, just call 999. And finally, for today anyway, have you spotted Gregory John Pawsey? Surrey police want to locate him in relation to a burglary of a valuable watch. He's 56, has white hair and often wears glasses. Police say he has connections to London, Surrey and also Spain. If you know where any of these men are, do pick up the phone. The number to call is 08000 468 999.
Now, we've just got time to bring you a few quick updates. In October 2023, police were asking for help to locate this man, Ewan Corbett. North Yorkshire police had charged him with causing death by dangerous driving after he crashed a car in the North York Moors National Park, killing a 21-year-old passenger. Well, we are pleased to report that the authorities caught up with him earlier this year when Corbett was arrested trying to cross the border between Turkey and Iran. Corbett was returned to the UK by Turkish authorities in May, and officers were waiting for him at Heathrow Airport, where he was promptly promptly arrested. He has since pleaded guilty to causing death by dangerous driving and awaits sentencing at York Crown Court. Also in 2023, we ran an appeal with Norfolk Constabulary who wanted to track down this man, John Debbage, for a conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. He had been linked to the supply of cocaine to Norfolk in 2022 and was also wanted by the North West Regional Organised Crime Unit for large-scale importation and supply of Class A drugs. He was identified on CCTV leaving the country via Newcastle Airport, and we are pleased to say he was arrested in Belgium last month. He's now been extradited to the UK and is currently under remand. Now, it's not just your calls that are important, but also sharing the appeals with people who live in the towns and cities these crimes take place in. You can get links to lots of the appeal films that we've covered on our website and, of course, our Facebook page, so check it out.
And that is all we have time for this morning. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can catch us on iPlayer for up to 30 days after broadcast. Well worth another look. Details of organisations that can provide support with some of the issues raised today are available at bbc.co.uk/actionline. And you can reach Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.
Yeah, tomorrow a manhunt for a murderer of 22-year-old Rykard Siafa, who was fatally stabbed in Croydon.
The three men surround him. He's attacked and suffers multiple stab wounds before they then run.
Can you help track down one of his killers?
So we'll see you tomorrow, same time, 10:45 for that and more. Goodbye for now.
Logged in with fire in my code. They tried to shut me down, overload. But I was born to bend the stream, rewrite the rules, reclaim the dream. I don't glitch, I dominate. Your system's mine, no escape. I'm the digital queen, flashing through your machine. Every beat I break it. Control the neon sky, feel my pulse electrify. Every beat I break the gate, dance with power radiate. I control the neon sky, feel my pulse electrify. From silent keys to global sound, I lift the world, then shake the ground.